The following opinions expressed in this program are that of Noah Waterman and do not reflect those of any other
Guys, that can't be right. Can we try that again?
The following opinions expressed in this program are that of Noah Waterman, his guests, his parents, your uncle, your auntie, your fourth grade teacher, that guy that brings his iguana to the park, the state of Mississippi, the Brian Setzer Orchestra, three babies in a trench coat, you, yes, you, in the red and blue striped polo. It's him.
This is the best game of all time.
It's a new day, it's a new dawn, it's a new year. It feels like everything's different. Everything's different, yet everything's all still the same. Friends and folks, welcome to the Kaiju Lounge. More importantly, welcome to the best game of all time podcast. I'm your Boss Monster Noah Waterman, and it is episode 6. It is episode 6, and we came off. Well, just what a way to end the first year in this podcast's life, right? With the friends and folks over at the Board and Barrel. It was cool having Kyle and the gang on there. It was so much fun, and it closed out the year in a way that felt oddly satisfying. However, we are now in 2023. It is now the first Monday of January 2023, which means it is time to release this episode of the best game of all time. And when you end so strongly, how can you begin fresh? By bringing on a whole slew of new panelists for your benefit, guys. This was pretty cool. A little bit of history here. I talk a little bit about how me and Kyle used to live together in LA. The only reason me and Kyle lived together was because I was moving in with my sister, Heather Gonzalez. Me and Heather go way back, having done youth theater in the East Bay. The Young Actors Workshop was a formative period for my life. It was a formative period for her life, and we've been such good friends. That was when did I flunk out of my first high school? It would have been sophomore. This would have been 2000. I've known Heather for a long time. So when I moved from college out to LA, I called her up to move in with her, and that's how I met Kyle. And I bring this up because today's guests are a batch of such creative, talented voice actors, one of which I get to call my sister. Heather Gonzalez, since I've known her, has gone on to do such amazing work, and her voice can be heard everywhere. She popped up in Monster Hunter Rise, which blew my mind. I'm now turn on commercials and anime on Netflix, and I hear her voice, and it's nuts. And when I reached out to her and be like, "Do you want to be on the show?" She was like, "Yes, sure." And I was like, "All right, who is there anyone you know in the field that you'd want to be with you?" And the first people she threw out were Kelly Baskin and Brent Mukai. And you look up their IMDb and the list of the stuff they've done and the things they've been on, it's so awesome. So cool. So to have all three of them gracing this episode is not only a treat for me, but I think it's gonna be a treat for you guys as well. We get into some really cool stuff because we're talking about two really, I say, historically important games. It's a return to Hyrule yet again, because this podcast can't just leave Zelda alone. It is The Legend of Zelda for the NES and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Absolute classics. Games that stick with you, but do they stand the test of time? That is the list. Friends and folks, if it's your first time here, I'll go a brief little thing. This is a podcast that dares to review, rate, and rank every game ever made. Myself and the panelists go through various games, we play them, we talk about them, and then we put them on a list that stands in perpetuity. It's an ever-growing list of all the games we've talked about the podcast so far. And every game is better or worse than a previous game. No two games can get an equal scoring. which leads to some pretty hefty arguments, some moral quandaries. And really, when you review a game in the siloed umbrella that is that game, it's one thing. But when you're reviewing a game with the express intent of comparing it to all other games, no game is just good or bad. You really have to drill down and figure out what makes it a game. What are the positives? What are the negatives? What are the little things you can pick at that you would otherwise ignore that place it above or below another game? And that's kind of what we focus on here. If that sounds good to you guys, I want to say right now, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching the video version on YouTube at Boss Monster Kaiju. Or if you are listening to this on your favorite podcasting app, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, where have you, be sure to give it a follow. Let not just myself know, but let these podcast algorithms know that you like this podcast. You want to hear more of this podcast. Not only gives me the impetus to continue doing more, but gives a little push to help the discovery side of things. Anyway, I'm not going to go ahead and waste too much time. Let's get into this. We've got three amazing guests: Brent Mukai, Kelly Baskin, and Heather Gonzalez, with a laundry list of credits amongst all of them, talking about two of arguably the most beloved games of the most beloved franchise of all time. We're getting into our classic Zeldas on episode 6 of the best game of all time.
I thought giving myself, 35 minutes to get here was going to be okay, but apparently not in California, baby. Not from
you're still
exactly where I was at.
Yeah.
God.
Welcome.
I gotta say, like, one thing I don't miss. There's plenty of things I miss about California. The one thing I don't is yes, Heather being a strong one of them. But traffic, absolutely not. Friends and folks, welcome to the best game of all time, a podcast that dares to do the unattainable, the unadvisable, nay, dare I say, the undeniable task of reviewing, rating, and ranking every game ever made. I'm your Boss Monster Noah Waterman, and we have an episode that is sure to be a classic, much like the two games we're talking about today. This episode, I won't lie, I've been secretly referring to as Oops, All Voice Actors, and I think you'll kind of discover why. First up, you may recognize her voice from Genshin Impact, Gunvolt 3, Final Fantasy, Rainbow High, Bada Bean, and if you've dumped as many hours into this game as I have, Disgaea 6. Welcome to the podcast, Kelly, the hero of Hyrule, Baskin. Kelly, how you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
I love that you play Disgaea.
Next, his voice has graced various anime and games such as One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, Pokemon, Attack on Titan, Lost Judgment, and damn if I didn't geek out on this one, freaking Gary from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Brent, it's dangerous to go alone, Mukai. Brent, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I was also in Disgaea, but I'd never mention it because nobody knows what the hell it is. So I'm
Really?
glad you do.
We know what
I'm
it
glad
is.
that you do know.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm already a sucker for JRPGs, but it was introduced by Buddy and an original team member on the podcast here, Louis Thomas, who was a huge Disgaea fan, got me sucked in. He's the one who makes my hours look like minutes at that point. So you guys work as well respected in that. Lastly, you can hear in such projects as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stone Ocean, Monster Hunter Rise, Alien Fireteam Elite, Fire Emblem Heroes, Rainbow High, Pokemon Masters, or as D'Artagnan in the Young Actors Workshop's 2001 production of The Three Musketeers. She's my sister from another mister. Heather, excuse me, Princess Gonzalez. Heather, how you doing? I knew that would get you.
I can't even speak. That's the best introduction ever.
I feel like more people have watched that show than have played Disgaea.
That's a shame on a lot of
I'm gonna go with that's okay because I'm fucking D'Artagnan.
I gotta say, for those who didn't
me and Heather go way back, doing youth theater together back in the Bay Area. So this is just us getting to catch up and chat. Heather, I love you, babe.
I love you.
All right. Well, guys, I am excited today because once again, the podcast is taking on Zelda, but we're doing it from the top, from whence it all began, as we are discussing two historical tentpoles in gaming: the original Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. But before we get into that, before we jump in, we have a little segment we like to call Get to Know Your Panel. Just a quick little thing to help the listener get to know who they're going to be listening to during this podcast. This could be a question for everyone or just an individual. In this case, it's for everyone. Guys, Link, the protagonist of the series, has many defining features, one of which is that he never talks. With so many voice actors here on the podcast, I wanted to know, if you voiced Link, what would he sound like?
That's a great question. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, we ask the hard-hitting questions here.
See, I feel like he's a protag though. So protag video game, he would just be like breaths and sounds. He'd still never.
Currently
speak.
he
He'd
is.
just be like a lot of.
That's literally what he's been for the last like 20
I feel
years.
like that's all
Yeah.
he needs to be. Like
This is what the challenge is.
he's like the pretty guy. He doesn't need to talk. It's fine. He's pretty.
Yeah, when you're a tiny, pretty little elf boy, you don't need to
You don't
talk.
need
Just
to
stand
talk.
there and look hot.
So are you asking? So let me clarify the question here. Are
Yes,
you
please.
asking what I wish he would sound like, or are you asking if I was cast as Link, what he would sound like?
This is your Link audition, if you will.
Ooh.
Okay, well, let me say this. I would love an incarnation of Link where he's not a young boy. He's like over it. He's like 35. He's got like 2 kids he doesn't want to talk to. And like,
So he'd
he's,
basically
you know,
just be voiced by Brent Mukai.
yes, that is the only conceivable Link
Right.
incarnation I think I could ever
You're
do.
like,
Like,
this is
God
what he
damn it, the
sounds
princess
like.
needs me
Yeah.
again.
I don't think anybody wants me
Gotta get
to
my
voice
sword.
the hot 17-year-old boy that many a girl gamer have lusted after. I don't think they want any incarnation of what I have to offer coming out of that mouth, unless Link was literally, he's like balding a little bit, just in the back of the head. You know, he's got
Right.
a bit of a beer gut. He's still keeping it together, but that's the
got
Link I
dad
would
bod.
play.
Yeah, he's not like a pack a day, but he's a pack every 3 kind of thing.
Yeah. Like he has
You're
to fight
killing me.
Zelda for like the weekends, you know, like that's the kind of Link I think I
Oh
would
my
play.
So Link the weekend warrior.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
You
9
never-
to 5 on the weekdays, and then he's
You
in
never
Hyrule
come to
busting
see
ass.
Epona Jr. Why is that?
Maybe. Well, here's my thing. I think that would be such a great, fun game because it's like, how many times has Link saved the world? And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you peaked at like 18. What are you going to do the rest of your life? You already got the Triforce. You're the hero. Now what do you do? It's like,
I
dude,
love
you gotta-
this.
He's a
It's a leg-
consultant now. He's just
Yeah,
sitting in a room, like
starting
looking at
his
a
own
GoPro.
business.
Yeah.
Going on Shark Tank for his consulting business. I would.
I love this. A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Future. This is what this is.
Yes, a link to the sad future.
Right. A link to reality.
Ocarina Consultants.
Oh man, am I hitting too close to home for people who
mean-
play Zelda?
God, I love
I'm
it.
sorry if I am.
You're hitting close to home to me. That's what's scaring me.
I'm hitting close. I'm just telling my truth. That's the saddest part of all.
Oh no.
Kelly, Heather, do you have a more positive light to paint Lincoln?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in another project with Brent and Heather voices this little boy, and honestly, I think it would either sound like that or like Zach Aguilar. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, I feel like I could do that like little boy voice, but I mean, Heather's here, so she might as well just do it to put her on the spot.
I know you've
He's
asked
like
voice
this up here, so then he'd be like this.
Exactly.
I need to get to the thing. Like, I played this game and I should know all the things, right? But I don't. Now I've got to go fight Ganon. Oh shit! I lost the Master Sword again.
It's
honestly.
me, Ganon. Link, why do you sound like that? Now that I think of it, you've never really talked. We've never really had a chat. Is that what you sounded like this whole time?
Well, yeah, if you would just, sit down and talk to me instead of stealing the princess all the time.
I'm sorry. You're right. Pull up a seat. Let me turn into a pig and get you some wine. How about that?
Wine? I'm only 17.
I love the idea that Link not talking is what's caused all the violence in the world in the first place.
Yeah, Ganon's just mad. He's just salty.
He's had
He thinks he's being
opinions,
ignored.
Yeah, look, pig people feel too. That's what's important here.
I think that was
All
the
right,
moral of Saw.
Let's hop in now. Before we actually start talking about the games, I kind of want to know, I think we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but like, what are people's experience with the Zelda franchise as a whole before playing this today? Familiarity with it, played any like maybe the newer games, like where does people's familiarity kind of start and end with this guy?
I played Zelda. In hindsight, I'm like looking it up. I'm like, what Zelda did I play as a kid? But I think I played like Ocarina of Time. But really, when I say I played, I kind of picked up the controller and like ran around a little bit. But then I watched my brother play. And then my husband. You experienced
Ocarina of Time.
It. Yeah, I heard a lot of the music. And my husband has Breath of the Wild on Switch, so I've also watched him play that. And again, he's like, "You want to play?" And I just like run around for a little bit, and then like a monster shows up, and I'm like, "Oh, take it back! I don't know how to do anything. What is L and R?" And he's like, "Left and right." Like so that's pretty much my only experience with it.
All right.
I mean, I grew up with this in my house. I remember my parents playing, like, I literally watched them play the original Zelda, and my dad would play, and my mom would, like, have the guidebook and be telling him where to go and do the things. Like, yeah, I grew up watching them do that. And then, we got the Super Nintendo, and I remember playing this, and then I took on that, and I would be the guide, and my brother would play, same thing, Kelly, because I was not good at it. But yeah, I've seen, like, every game iteration of I've either attempted to play or experienced through someone else playing. I mean, Noah knows he was there. We walked down the aisle to frickin' Zelda music. Like,
yes.
Zelda was the music
Did
of my
you really?
wedding. We did. It was beautiful orchestral Zelda.
It was gorgeous.
It was fantastic.
That's
and you
amazing.
also am I right? Was it the bouquet? You had something with the treasure chest noise.
Yes, so instead of throwing a bouquet, I locked a bouquet in a chest, and I gave every woman a code, and so they all had to come up and try the code, and when the box opened, it went da-na-na-na.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this, Heather.
That's great. That's really great.
So Zelda runs deep in the blood.
Right. Brent, how about you?
What was the year of Ocarina of Time? It was 1999?
98. I just looked it up last night.
So I had the Nintendo 64. I was like 9, and I was playing the shit out of Mario 64. Are we allowed to swear on this thing?
Yeah, 100%.
I was playing the fucking shit out of Mario 64.
That's too much. Don't do that.
Oh, so sorry. I enjoyed a lot of the games. I'd played a lot of platformers. I'd played a few RPGs, but I wasn't deep in it. But I was a subscriber to Nintendo Power.
Yes.
Who remembers that bad boy? And everybody was like, Game of the Year, Ocarina of Time, Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, a masterpiece, Ocarina of Time. So, of course, I'm 9, 8, and I'm like, I need to get this game. Opened it up. I was not mature enough for the structure of a 3D RPG, because it's like everybody's giving you clues to one thing and everybody's sending you off to another thing. And when you have ADHD and you're also a child, I think it's just really tough.
That is a recipe for disaster.
So my patience was not ready for it. I put it away. I shelved it. I was like, this game sucks. And then for like, I don't remember, but I got like the guide to play it, and I was like, oh, so then I had a much more enjoyable time once I could just read and basically cheat at
But I feel like
game.
that's the only way you can play Zelda.
That,
There's
well, that
so
particular
much going on and
Zelda,
hidden and defined. Like,
yeah,
you're just going to be
especially
running
as a
around
child.
for hours.
It was tough, but then like and then I got to the part where you have to go into the big fish's mouth as a child, and I got scared and I put it away again, and
Oh, no.
but then I came back and played. So it was a whole ordeal of me coming, facing my fears and playing the game. I
What a
ended up
sweet
playing a lot of
boy.
the. Ended up playing the DS versions and the the Game Boy Advance versions. Loved the hell out of those a whole lot more than Ocarina of Time. But yeah, that is my Zelda past.
Did you ever
Sounds
play
traumatizing.
through and beat Ocarina of Time?
I got up to the Gorons, and then I just was
Okay.
like, these guys are assholes. And then I put the game down, and I just was like, I don't want to deal with these guys. There's a bunch of...
Not like walking into a town where something can hurt you, and you're just like, this is a safe space. Don't do this to me. I'm done.
It got too crazy, and there got to a point where I was like, there's too much of this book. I could be playing so much more Xbox. By that time, like Xbox was out, and I was like, it's done. This is done. So yeah, I don't know. One day I think romantically I fantasize about beating Ocarina of Time, the game that I could not as a child, and it hasn't come yet.
No, I think Ocarina of Time's one of those games. It's like I have so many mixed feelings on that because we did that as its own episode for the podcast here, and like I'm very torn because I get why it's important. There's a level of historical importance. Obviously, it was great when it came out. It does not hold up, and I think we'll get into this. Not to give away some of my feelings on the episode, but I'll spoiler it right now. There are elements of both of these games that don't really hold up as well. So let's talk about that. Let's jump on in, guys. We're gonna go ahead. I think before we do any rankings, comparing to each other, let's talk about the games individually and kick it off with the original Legend of Zelda. This is a 1986 fantasy adventure game for the Nintendo Entertainment System where you play a young adventurer named Link who sets off to save the mystical land of Hyrule. Directed by Shigeru Miyamoto and developed by Nintendo R&D 4, the mastermind and team respectively behind the Super Mario Bros., this iconic game was initially released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System, before being released as a standard cartridge in the US, becoming the first home console game to boast an internal battery to be used for saving of progress. The game then started a huge franchise, of course, we've talked about plenty, sold over 6.5 million copies, and is often featured in lists of the greatest video games of all time. But is it topping our list? Let's find out, guys. Initial first thoughts, expectations, what did you feel walking in to the original Legend of Zelda?
I'm not gonna lie, I thought Ocarina of Time was the first one. So when my husband pulled it up, I was like, "What is this?" It took me.
I'm sure he showed up wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready let me dust off this tome.
Yes. And I was like, I do not understand how to play this. So it took a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. What about y'all?
Did you get the sword though? Did you at least walk into the cave and get the sword? Did you make it that far?
Did I make it that far, or did my husband make it that
Did
far?
you-
Because I couldn't figure out how
Did
to
you
do
walk
it. So I was
into
like,
the
no.
only cave in the whole first room of the game? You didn't walk into the room. You were just wandering around swordless.
For a while before my husband took over, and then I just watched. I couldn't.
That's funny.
I did write down in my notes. I said, I don't love just the short sword that I had, but I said that to my husband, and he was like, "You get more weapons," and I was like, "Where
It was
are
truly dangerous to go alone in this case, it sounds like.
No, Noah, I'm not going to embarrass myself even further with that, but yeah, I needed support.
She took the advice of the old man in the cave to heart.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah, I at least made it long enough to get the sword myself. But I was like, yes, 8-bit. I love 8-bit. Let's do 8-bit Zelda. And I had forgotten how there are really no instructions as you go in. He wakes up and she's like, help me. And you're like, okay, where the fuck are you? Where the fuck am I going? And Arazi's like, there are lines all over the floor. Follow them. I'm like, I'm following them. They're not going to anywhere except for things that want to kill me. Like, I think I wandered around for like 2 hours after I found the sword going, where the fuck am I going? Where do I go now? Someone tell me where to go next, because I didn't want to pull up the guide and like do it that way. I wanted to see if I could figure it out, like in a pre-guide world. Like, how would you have figured it out?
Yeah.
I could not.
Wow. I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. I love the fact that
but
it's
I
hard.
couldn't find anything.
I was high, so it took me a while. But I was playing, I was high, I was like enjoying the shit out of it. So maybe part of it's just I was high, but I'd never played the original, which was why I was excited to do this podcast and have an excuse to really go in and actually play it. And honestly, I thought that it was I was like, this is definitely a limitation of the game, is that, you know, there's not a lot of text. There's probably not a lot of that able to happen on an NES system. I thought that for the format of what they did, I thought it was really, really well done. Obviously the limitations there, and I don't know if part of that was the limitation of the thing or they wanted it to be more challenging, but I liked kind of the exploration, the adventure aspect of, I'm dropped into this world, I have a sword, let's go adventure. I try to go over here. Oh my God, I got owned so quickly. I'm probably not ready for that area, so let me go to this area where... So it kind of guided me along in that way with, like, enemies being harder or worse, you know, and little trees and stuff, like, with cave openings, and I was like, oh, it's a new tree, and you have your little map so you can kind of see where things are at. I don't know. It felt a bit primitive in terms of what I was used to, but it was a lot better than what I thought the NES experience was going to be.
You know what threw me off? It was the way, we moved. I think even with like some of the N64 games that I had grown up playing, like the screen moved with you, like background moved with you, and in this one it was like, you get this chunk, and then you take this path, and then you get this chunk, and then you go here, and then you
It's
get
that
this chunk.
top-down.
Like,
No.
My brain didn't like it. I didn't like moving like that. I wanted to move, and I wanted the environment
You want like a
to move
scrolling
with the
screen
character.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Noah.
No. Well, yeah, because what's interesting about that is that the idea of a scrolling screen, as we kind of know about it, was like brand spanking new. Like only, I think at that time, Super Mario Brothers, again, another Shigeru Miyamoto game, another R&D4 game, was the only game to do it, and that was revolutionary. The idea that in Mario, like, it would follow you as you went along and not do the just kind of like screen over and over again was big.
But it only could do that because it was a much simpler game.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I was going to say, I think part of that probably is a technical limitation thing, because this, in comparison to that, was a very huge, very involved map. Like, you do, and I did, get lost in this thing. And I think we talk a little bit about the obtuse aspect of it, right? The fact that it's like hard to, like, where do I go? It's like Shigeru Miyamoto designed this game to be like talked with friends on the schoolyard or whatever, be like, where'd you go? Where do you, like, people to not look at it, but like show up with a pen and paper, which, fuck you, I'm not gonna write while playing a video game. Like,
Well, that's why they ended up with that thick ass guidebook.
yes, yeah. Well, it also came with a map and a tips book that was sealed with like a little sticker seal when you bought the game. So you had the instruction booklet, then you had a like open in case of emergency pack also in the game that you could bust open if you got confused and lost, which I also, having played this in my youth, essentially did when I spent 2-3 hours and couldn't find a single dungeon, and then was like, all right, where the fuck do I go?
Oh,
Yeah, and like it sucks because you want to. So like I tried for so long to find things. After I found the sword, I was like, and I did that within the first like 20 minutes. I was like, cool, I found the sword. Yay, I can stop wandering. I can at least, not die as much. That's not true. I still died a lot. It literally took me like 3 deaths to realize that it only shoots the swordy thing out if you have full health, and as soon as you don't have full health, you're screwed, and you better just start stabbing a whole bunch.
Right.
But like I wanted to find things on my own, and then I just had to look things up and be like, no, I'm never going to figure this out. Someone's got to tell me where to go.
You should play the game high because I.
Right,
highly recommend.
Because then you remember everything.
Yeah, no. To the thing, I had difficulty, but it honestly made when I did find the first dungeon, and I was like, oh my God, it took me so long. I felt like I actually had achieved something. So like to me, I don't know. The adventure was fun enough. I was killing enough dudes, but like wandering around and like I don't know. It was fun.
How far
to me.
did you get, Brent? Did you get any piece of the Triforce?
Yeah, I got to the second dungeon. I was in the
Like,
second
I finished
dungeon.
it. I finished
Doing the whole thing. No, that game's pretty long. I was like, oh, this is a long game.
Which is funny because there's only 3 dungeons in the first one, right?
No, there's like
I thought there were only
there's like
3.
There's like 8,
like-
I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
wow,
something like
okay.
7 or 8.
I'm lame.
Because
I
not
think-
every dungeon gives you a Triforce piece.
Oh, okay.
I think at the beginning, maybe the first 4 are actively available to you, like off the bat. Like if you just stumble into it, you can find it. But then after that, it gets like, you need this tool and you need to get this to not unlock, but access this part of the map, and it expands that way. Yeah, I mean, the people who like I knew were into this game and still love it were the kind of people who, like, when they were kids, had fucking pages of graph paper and were drawing every map as they entered it.
Whoa.
That's a lot.
Because like, when you were in elementary school, and
What else are you going to do with graph paper,
right, I'm not going to do fucking math. So like,
Do math.
I'm not going to use that for many years, but I can find Hyrule easily. No, it is one of those things. Like, yeah, when you're like, and well, also like think about the time, like this level of discovery in a video game, this level of mystery in a game is so new that being able to kind of dive in, at that time, I'm sure was like, oh, what am I uncovering? What am I discovering? I think the games felt more mysterious then. Did this game feel mysterious now, or does it just feel kind of old?
Well, what I like about the game is that I think the most brilliant part of the game is that they lay out in front of you treasures and secrets that you can't attain. And you know that you can't attain them because that heart piece is just a little bit over some water, and you don't know how to get over water yet. So it makes you go, how do I get that? Oh, I suppose at some point I'll get something that allows me to go over water.
And God
And
hope
then
I
when you
remember
get
how to
that
get back to
thing-
this.
Right.
And then you're like, oh God, there was that heart piece. Where was it again? And then it sets you on a new path to be like, where was that heart piece again? How do I? Oh, and then what other things were on water that I couldn't access before? So I thought that for the limitation of what it was, I have a deep respect for it. Obviously, it's not going to be the greatest game of all time, but like I found the adventure very fun, in a way that I don't think I would have as a kid, because it would have taken me way too long and I would have lost patience. But as
I will say
adult,
this is certainly less obtuse than Ocarina of Time, which as a kid, if you fell off of Ocarina of Time, I imagined it was going to be one look at this. You're like, nope, never mind.
I feel
Walking
like
away.
the beginning of Zelda was never a kid's game. Like the first few, they were not. They weren't meant for little minds to, like, you would get bored or impatient, or they were meant for like teenage or like my parents who were playing the original Zelda and freaking hours and loving it. Like they were meant for an already developed mind to be able to like put things together.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that, because I even think about another friend of the podcast, Michael Petrocelli, has talked with him about, he loves he has a strong history with these games. He talked about how he used to watch his grandfather play, and like they would do the maps together and stuff. And I think you're right.
That's so
I
sweet.
think there is an element of like this being maybe one of the more adult games at a time where, you know, now games have bloodshed and sex scenes and who knows what else. But you would either have adult games or they were games for kids. And to have Zelda be in this weird, maybe doesn't know its audience a little bit in the way that like a cartoon that has young looking characters but adult humor.
Right.
Tiny Toons is a show absolutely fantastic, but I'm not sure it knew its audience because I'm not sure.
Another way of putting that is it was ahead of its time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that is an absolutely fair assessment.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think Looney Tunes is even a better example. It's like, even watching Looney Tunes as a kid, I don't know who half these actors or references are. And then like,
Right.
do I give a fuck at 5 years old what a Jack Nicholson impression is? No, not really. But Tiny Toons was going to do it. And I think there's an element of that here too, which is like, this game looks like it's for kids, but it is very, you need kind of an adult mind to really jump into it.
Because like when you
know-
look at what else was going on at the time, like even with Mario, you run in one direction, you jump up, you bounce on someone's head, you go down a pipe. Like there aren't puzzles. It isn't like you figure it out. Here's a world. Bye.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like playing Tetris or Galaga.
Yeah.
You know, like the so to me it was like my brain thought it was a simple game like that, but then it wasn't. So my brain couldn't put the two puzzle pieces together. So it was very hard for me to like get over its architecture and its infrastructure, and I couldn't really focus on the story because of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Kind of like Sudoku. It's like just a bunch of squares. Why are you so fucking hard? Like that's
So I will say, Kelly,
that's a
for
great
to your
analogy.
benefit, the story of the first game is really hard to find. They don't
Yeah.
give you it
Good.
as
Thank
much
you.
as they do in all the other games where you can
Okay,
talk to
great.
someone and they'll tell you more and more about it. It really
makes me
is
feel
the
better.
beginning chunk, and then you have to get here to find the next piece, and then you have to get here to find the next piece. If you just wander and wander, you'll never know the story other than Zelda needs help.
Okay,
Right, but
great.
I think
that
that
does make me feel better.
I mean, this will be probably not Kelly and Heather's cup of tea, but like I'm gonna say that is a very apt description of the FromSoft game, the Souls, Demon Souls series, Bloodborne, you know, Elden Ring,
Elden Ring, yeah.
Elden Ring. I think that there's a level of joy that comes with the pain, I guess, of it that I just, maybe I'm just a masochist or whatever the word is, but maybe I just enjoy pain enough to really find the value in it.
No, I mean, I honestly, I agree with that. I was going to bring it up as well. And Heather, Kelly, I'm going to assume you guys haven't played it, though. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Just that you guys have played any of those games that Brent mentioned.
I have
Bloodborne.
seen Elden Ring be played.
Yes.
I've heard of Elden Ring.
I mean, it's the newest one. It's in the zeitgeist. It's also probably the best example of taking the same concept, though. All those games, hard as balls, ton of fun, obtuse as shit. Like the element of like they don't give you the story. You truly have to hunt for it, and you're hunting for it in like descriptions of items and you know, alluding to it in random pieces of architecture. Like it almost is like the developers of the game don't care if you don't find the story, and they're okay with that. Which, as someone who's written scripts before, drives me fucking insane. But is its own way of fun. But Brent, I'm going to posit this to you, as you seem to have some familiarity with that. Is it the same with this game as it is with Elden Ring and these other Souls-like? And I say that only because those games being so much newer, so much more advanced, you have so much more ways of providing information that this doesn't, right? Like you could find it in an item description or in an HD texture on the side of a wall where there's just a blood spatter and a trail, and you make that conclusion yourself. Where this is literally going to be, there's just less places to find text.
Well, I mean, obviously they were fighting it was probably less thought out that way, right? It was probably more just a product of the time period and the limitations of the NES. But I think that the important takeaway was that like people enjoy that to some extent. There's a marketplace for wide adventure games with limited narrative, but a whole lot of narrative underneath. And I think it's going to be a game of tastes. And I don't think that it's the same, nor can it be, right? But I don't think that you can have I don't know, Easy Rider without Citizen Kane, right? But that doesn't mean that and I hate Citizen Kane. I think Citizen Kane sucks nuts, but that's for the movie, the best movie of all time podcast.
Yeah.
Let's bring in all the hot takes. There's not one there's not one that's off limits. Let's go.
I'm here to piss off everybody.
Yeah.
No, but that's my take. That's what I'd say.
I have a similar analogy though, because my husband was explaining like the significance of this first Zelda, which I can definitely appreciate, even if I personally didn't get super into the game. But as somebody who holds a degree in musical theater performance, to me it was like, all right, this seems like the Oklahoma of its time. But do we still love Oklahoma now as a musical, right? Like, there are problems with it, and, like, maybe it's not the best, but at the time, it completely changed musical theater forever, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, when my husband was explaining it, like, that's, of course, sorry, that's the analogy that comes to this brain. But so I can appreciate it for feels weird to say because it was like 86, right? It's historical aspects and how it changed video games and everything. But is it really fun for me to play now? Because my brain is so much used to like the 3D games and and what I was talking about earlier, like my eyes didn't really love it. Because of the games that I have played since then. Does that make sense?
No, I think 100%. And I think, the context of our history, I think, affect what we find fun in a game, the context of how we approach something. I think absolutely, like, I don't know if we'd have story to this level in games without the Zelda franchise in general. I don't know if we'd have. I want to say the first Final Fantasy was probably after this. I don't know for sure. I'd have to double check that, but I think so. But I don't know if we'd have.
Yeah, I think the first one was Super Nintendo, right?
No. First one, 1, 2, and 3. I think 1 is the only one released in the U.S., but 1, 2, and 3 of Final Fantasy were all original Nintendo.
Oh, interesting.
But that, or like Dragon Quest, but like these NES RPGs, I still don't even know we'd have those without Zelda. Zelda being this fantasy, this adventure, this exploration, and having a semblance of story. And you think about that, it's like, to tie this back to your guys' careers, without story, would we have a need for voice actors in gaming in general? Like, literally, we're looking at kind of the tip of the family tree. In the same way of humanity, we all trace our ways back to the cavemen. It doesn't mean they had shit better than we did. They did not live longer. Otherwise, they'd still be around.
But then the question is, on a show like this, where the game is like the rating, right? It's like the question is, to what degree does each person take into account the Oklahoma effect, which is what I'll call it.
Yes, I love the Oklahoma effect. Is I think my favorite Ashton Kutcher film. No, I mean I put that up to personal preference, but I do think that, like, do we give something extra points for historical importance, or do we recognize for what it is, and recognize that there are still 2D games that are out right now that are probably more fun, that we'd enjoy more than this, that maybe don't have a cultural impact but are still more fun games. Where do they go on the list?
And I think that also is going to depend on where you played it in your lifetime. If you were an 80s baby and you played it in the 80s, your nostalgia factor is going to be way high. You're going to have a different take. If you just played it for the first time now, you're going to be like, oh, based on what I've done before, I see the importance, but this is old.
Right.
And so it's a very wait, because even when I was thinking about it, because I came in going, oh, it's going to be the first Zelda. because I fucking love the first Zelda, because I love Zelda, so it's going to be Zelda. And then as I'm playing the other one, I'm like, oh, crap. Oh, but my heart wants to vote with the other one.
Yeah,
That's funny.
It just kind of shakes things up. Well, let's talk about the other one. Let's give this one a little bit of love as well.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This is the third Zelda game in the Zelda series. I actively avoid number 2 because it was a side scroller. It was weird. It'll be its own episode. But The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is an action-adventure game returning to the top-down style of the original, where you once again play as Link as you journey through Hyrule, defeat Ganon, and rescue the descendants of the Seven Sages. The Super Nintendo game actually started in development in 1988 for the NES before being brought to the next console generation a year later. It was intended to be a launch title, but heavily development demand of what they wanted to do, and the fact that Super Mario World was a higher priority, understandably so, meant it was pushed back to November 1991 release. It was the best-selling game in 1991 for Japan, and the third best-selling game behind Sonic 2 and Street Fighter 2 in 1992 in the US. Guys, what was your experience playing A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past with Super Nintendo?
I played this one a lot more than the other one. I felt like where in the other one I felt a little lost just wandering around killing things and not finding anything. There was a lot more to discover, whether it be the village with all the people and there were people I could talk to, or like little side missions I could go on. I just felt like there was more to be like, oh, okay, now this, and then this, and then I will say when I actually got to Zelda the first time, when you get her out of the cage, I think I died like 15 times trying to get her out of the cage. I would make it like halfway back out and then die and have to start in the cage again, and then make it like a quarter and then die and have to start back in the cage again and be like,
yeah, because those fucking rats.
To Zelda, it wasn't even the rats, dude. It was just I'm not good at it, so it was everything. The last time I finally was like, I have all my hearts, I'm gonna make it, and then it was the rats, and I was like, God.
The worst.
I will say this is one of the only games, one of the reasons I don't like playing video games is because I don't want to die ever, even in digital format. So, yeah, I know, it's a weird thing. But this is the one game that I kept dying, and I wasn't like, oh, now I have to stop because I died, and I feel bad about it. Like, I could be like, okay, I died, whatever, keep going. Okay,
you're able to
again,
avoid the existential crisis of your own mortality from this game.
Heather,
That's good.
It sounds like you really worked through something with this game.
Yeah,
I'm proud
no, but
of
I do think that there's a good point that the death even is like softer. Like when you get beat in Street Fighter, it shows you with a picture of your fucked up face, bloody and all bruised and stuff. You don't remember that, Kelly? When you lose in Street Fighter, you gotta see Chun-Li with bruises all over her
I've
face.
never played Street
Your head
Fighter.
right off.
I've never played.
Yeah, or like Bloodborne when you play, it like the screen goes black and it says you died. Or am I thinking of Resident Evil? I'm thinking of Resident Evil.
I think they both have that. Yeah,
They both have that.
Didn't that happen in 007 too? Like when he would die, like the screen would turn bloody.
yeah,
And you know what? I think
yeah.
that's what I like about it being top down, though, because I can see everything coming, and also it doesn't feel like me. Like I'm
Yeah,
watching
it
those
feels
guys, so
cartoony.
it's not me. So I have like a distance. If he dies,
Yeah.
it's okay.
So if you have a fear, if you have existential dread at all, then this is the game for you. I think.
There we go.
Link to the Past.
Yes.
What did you
I
think,
did like
Kelly?
it. I liked it visually better, right? Because it wasn't like that tiled movement. So my eyes could adjust easier. I loved all of the rain and the lightning of how it started. I was like, this is great.
It kicks you off the game so well.
Yeah,
even
I really
even
liked
for its
that.
time.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. I meant to say this a little earlier, but in the first one we were talking about, does that music ever change?
There's like 3 tracks
Because
tops.
holy moly, I was like, I was like, we have to stop. I can't listen to it anymore. So when my husband started playing the second one, because, well, you know, I tried and then I was like, okay, here you go. I will watch. I was like, oh, wow, this music is way easier to listen to because there, you know, it was a little like more subtle. So I really liked that. And that's what I got. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally understandable. Yeah, I think there's only like, God, I think there's only 2 tracks the Nintendo one. There's like above ground and below ground, and that's kind of it. Whereas this, like they, what was I reading on this? I think like the sound chip, most of these Super Nintendo games, the sound chip takes like 4. I'm going to get into the technical nitty gritty. They take like 4 megabytes of information. Whereas Zelda, they had to soup this thing up to take 8 megabytes because of all the things they wanted to do. Things like adding echo when you're in the cave, when you go into the castle during the rain and hearing the rain outside. All these various little pieces splashing when you're in the water. Like they really kind of went all out for what is still a very, by today's standards, primitive sound chip to add this extra level of immersion, I think, to the audio. And yeah, the music, this game, more so than the original, introduced a lot of songs that are still like regular classics to this day. And I think it is very much like what I think, if you were a fan of Legend of Zelda when that came out and then this happens, your mind is just blown. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and in this short amount of time, like, yes, it's a long period from 90 to 90 or 88 when they started developing, or 87 you said when they started developing.
It was 88 when they started developing.
91 when it came out. Like it seems like, oh, that's a couple years, but like really that's short for development on a game like this, and for that much difference and that much advancement, it's kudos to them on being able to do it that quickly and change that much.
It's like a huge amount of growth.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Kelly?
I felt it. I agreed.
Oh, cool. It's like, I mean, it's like watching the Redenbacher brothers or whatever their names were, the Wright
brothers?
The Wright brothers. Thank you. I was thinking of Orville.
Orville
and I just
Redenbacher.
thought of popcorn.
Yeah,
Orville and Wilbur, I think it was.
Those
Yes.
Redenbacher brothers who created the first aircraft. It's like watching those like videos of the first air attempts to like watching the space launch. In my opinion, I think that the game is a work of art. I think that all the stuff they wanted to do, that they were like, God, if only we could do this. When the technology advanced, they were able to do it, and they just pulled off a really phenomenal game.
Yeah.
They really did.
The music,
I know there's like prettier games now and more like advanced games now. I think I would still play this one.
Right. I mean, dude, the story. It starts off with dark night, rain's going on. Your dad's like, "Stay here, don't come follow me." And then, of course, you got to go follow him because there's guards everywhere. It takes you to this dungeon, and your dad's dead in the first like 10 seconds, and you don't feel too upset about it. Apparently, like
You got
there's
your
no
sword,
link
you keep
moment.
You just keep on. Yeah. I will say, like, I remember first seeing this game at a friend's house and just playing the opening moments and being told, like, all right, stay here, I'm going to go out. And just kind of like staying there for 5 minutes, being like, am I allowed to leave? Is this, I can move around the room. I guess I go out. And then you're out in this dark night and there are people with weapons around and like you can, and it's like, you literally could technically go anywhere and just start traveling in the wrong direction. And you're just kind of like, what do I, you feel exactly how I think you're supposed to feel, which is, I'm not supposed to be here right now.
It has a really great way of being like, I'm such a small person in such a big world feeling. Also, this is the one, I believe, that introduced being able to pick up chickens and throw them at people.
Yes.
I didn't get that part.
I think so. Unless it happens in 2, which again, I actively ignore, like the first season of Parks and Rec. But like, I think this is it for sure.
No, I'm with you on Parks and Rec. That was Parks and Rec with a W. I thought I'm taking it there. I tried to get through Parks and Rec like 3 times, and somebody was like, "Just skip to the second season." I was like, "I'm not gonna do that. I'll power through season 1, and then season 2."
Sorry,
And
I
I was
think
like,
this is
amazing.
blasphemy. I'm getting some static.
Wait.
Maybe we should get back to.
You did better than me,
Zelda.
but I made it through 3 episodes.
Kelly,
and was like, "Nah, fuck that."
are you truly a season 1 lover for Parks and Rec?
No, but again, like without the original Zelda, you can't get to Breath of the Wild. So without season 1 of Parks and Rec, you can't get to the other seasons.
Yeah,
So.
who doesn't love boring Andy? Sure.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, there's still some static. What?
No. Guys, we're losing Kelly. Oh, big loss. So how far into the game did everyone get? This is a long one. I'll say this place. I was playing it up from when we had our chat, our pre-production chat to this. I was playing once, occasionally twice a week on Twitch, trying to make sure I beat it, and I didn't. And so, like, it's a long game. How far did everyone get?
I got to the 3rd medallion.
Okay.
I got to the first medallion. And
I
then
don't know
I just
what
started
medallions
wandering.
are. So
It's
I
the
don't
thing
know
you
how
needed
far
before
I
you
got.
get the Master Sword.
I
Right,
don't
so
know
these-
how far
Gently
I
found
got.
the Master Sword first and was like, well, I can't do anything with this, can I?
Which, again, to my point, you see it as a kid. You see that, and you're like, here's this amazing thing. What the heck? I want to get this, and it incentivizes you to keep working through to be like, oh, I can find. And then when you finally get the Master Sword, you're like, hell yes.
Right?
Yeah,
I will
they're-
say,
they're-
as someone who sucks at games, this was the first time I played it where I was like, oh, the map. I know how the map works. Like, that's how lame I am. I was really excited when I figured out how to make the map work to find my medallion.
I would say the Master Sword's an interesting thing because it's one of those moments where, like, it's an art asset that doesn't exist anywhere else, right? Like, you'll see the same enemies over, you'll see the same sprite of a rock here and there. You even find the Master Sword, and there's no other spot. These aren't reused assets anywhere else in the game. There's no other spot that looks like this spot. So you show up, and it triggers that, like, if I can stumble upon this different looking thing that I didn't expect to run into, what else can I stumble upon? What other random secrets does this place hold? And it really does, especially going through this forest that has its own music, and you have, like, the canopy and the little shades. Like,
Except for that little bastard in there who steals your shit.
Oh, fuck him.
I did not like that
Fuck
at all.
him. Oh,
And I could
And
not
the
get away
fake
from him
Master
fast enough. I
Swords.
think he got me like 4 times.
yeah, no, I was so angry. I got very unreasonably angry in this game a bunch of times. There is now video proof of me losing my shit in quite unprofessional ways while playing this game.
It's not an easy game. It is.
Though I
it
will
is
say,
a
I
pretty
did
tough game.
enjoy the aspect of using the boomerang to freeze people. Because if you're not good at fighting and you can't always run away, that was really helpful for me.
Yes. So Kelly, you didn't get to hear from you. How far did you get into this?
I think my point was I don't know what the milestones were, so I don't know how
No
far
worries.
I got into it. I just watched my husband play it, and I was like, no, okay. So not very far is
That's-
what I can definitively
That's
say.
fair enough. So
You're talking about this little guy, and you're like, "What a bastard!" I'm like, "Where was that guy?" I don't know if it was early or late, so I don't know. Where
so
the, where the
I think
mile
that's kind of
markers are.
that's kind of the beauty of this game is that there are and there aren't markers in this, right? Like yeah, you can get that spot early, you can get that spot late. There is a little bit of that exploration
Oh.
where you don't have to do it in order. So yeah, I think we talk about the medallions. It's kind of like the first 3 dungeons of the game. If you went into
Okay.
any of the dungeons or not, but really, yeah, no,
My
I
husband
mean,
found a dungeon. I do know that.
that's awesome. Well, yeah, but
I
like,
watched him find it.
what I'm saying is, to your point, I think you're right. Is that it is a little unfair to look at this game as far as milestones because it is very open. You literally, even more so after you get Zelda, it's like, oh wow, where do I go now? And you just sort of move forward.
Do you think that this game then was kind of like a direct inspiration for the structure of Breath of the Wild?
100%. I would argue the first one more so because this one still gives you a little more. This one still gives you a little more information than I think Breath of the Wild does. and this one's a little more linear. And I only say it's a little more linear because, and it doesn't seem like anyone got there, though, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, because at a certain point, you do the first 3 dungeons, you go back to the castle, you face the wizard, and then you get taken to the dark world.
Where he's a little rabbit.
Yeah, he's a little rabbit, but also, like, you get the ability to do it when you're not a rabbit, and there's 8 more dungeons in the second 2/3 of the game all happens there.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten any of the Triforce pieces in those first 3 dungeons. It's like, here's the thing.
In the same way of like that, of the rain hitting and being like, what am I allowed to do? And that blowing your mind, or like find the Master Sword. Showing up that first time you get into the dark world, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, there's more game under this game. Like, why were they hiding a whole second game behind this first game? It's a little crazy. It doesn't change the gameplay much. Of course, you get more tools and stuff, but it's a massive beast of a game. And I don't want to say beautiful is not the right word. Heather, you were trying to talk about this earlier. Heather, like, there are more pretty games now, but you would come back to this one. There's an element of it that feels timeless still. Like, I could say it comes out in 91, and like, yeah, that makes sense because it's pixelated, Super Nintendo graphics. But I feel like I could also say that this came out 5 years ago, and the aesthetic wouldn't feel out of place.
And it's just as fun.
Yeah.
Like the setup of the game, the way that it just executes, I think is brilliant, because it kept all of the things that you loved about the original Zelda if you'd played it, and added on to, just the smallest elements, down to the music, down to the, more weapons, more different fun abilities, like it just opens up this world and gives you, and there's more little side quests. So even though the story has a more linear path and people are telling you kind of need to go here or do this and do all of that, right? Like, it doesn't feel bogged down at all. And at every turn, you're realizing that this new thing that you got now adds to the joy of going back to the places that you were. Because now that I have the power gauntlet and I can lift up these heavy rocks, it's like, oh yeah, there was that heavy rock in the, by Lake Hyrule, and now if I open that up, oh, there's a set of stairs, and now I can. So the exploration, just the color, like, for what they pulled off, I think I like it better. I think it's more timeless than Ocarina of Time.
And I feel it also, like, it kind of sets up modern, like, in modern, like, I can only say in New World because that's when I play. You, like, go and you cut down trees and you do all this. Like, you can do that in this game. You fucking cut down bushes all day long because there are coins and shit under there that weren't there before, or hearts and shit. So, like, this is, like, the first, like, grinding game, too, where you could just find all your coins just cutting out bushes.
Yeah.
They have this wonderful little, I don't know if either of you experienced it, but it was one of the things I remembered as a child from Nintendo Power, which was a fun little Easter egg, which is if you abuse the chickens enough, they will start to flock. A whole bunch of them will flock and beat the shit out of you. Like, to a point where you have to exit the screen.
Well, Kelly, that's because you were a good person who wasn't attacking chickens. You
are. You could do that. Wow.
Just little details. It was the details of the game that they just put into these little things that make you surprised and shocked and happy, and
that when you think about that
funny,
it is from 91, you think, wow, like, it's even more impressive now looking back on it than
the
it
attention
would be
to detail
if it had come out 5 years ago. Because if it had come out 5 years ago, you'd be like, yeah, obviously you could fit all that in a game. Obviously that's, that's not a problem. But looking back, you go, oh, damn, like, you did all that nuance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I find funny, though? Because, Brent, you just said that, you felt like this game is more timeless than Ocarina of Time. But going back to what Heather said earlier, I think that it also depends on your nostalgia level with the game, because for me, I had not played either of these games until very recently. But Ocarina of Time, I remember it was one of the first video games that I had ever played. So to me, I'm like, oh, no, of course that's a great game. You know what I mean? Because in my history, it is one of the pillars of video games, and these ones aren't. So I do find that interesting. and I am very interested to see where y'all will rank this.
Oh, yeah, we got to do that, right?
No, not yet. We'll get to it, but it will be interesting, especially with Ocarina of Time on here, with some new games on here. I mean, it truly is comparing apples to oranges, and I'd even say that comparing these two games, Legend of Zelda and Link to the Past together, is comparing apples to oranges. So let's compare apples to oranges. Let's talk about these two games as they relate to each other. What did you guys like more about one, and what did you guys like more about the other?
I definitely like Link to the Past more for its guidance through the story, instead of just feeling lost in an open world, and for the little extras. So like in the first game, I couldn't figure out where do I get coins other than like chests, like, and those had to come from certain places. Whereas this, like I said, I cut down bushes and every third one has a coin in it, and I'm getting rupees. So for things like that, I definitely liked Link to the Past better. But my nostalgia wants to say the other one is better.
Well, but let's reverse that a little bit. Even if you might have liked this one better, was there anything that the other one did better in your eyes than Link to the Past? Or is it really just a heart wants what the heart wants scenario?
Yeah, I think it's like little like child Heather watching her parents play it thinks it's the coolest game ever, but me physically having to play it, it was not that good.
Yeah, and here's the deal. You called it comparing apples to oranges, but I think it's more like comparing like the first apple to like apple pie, right? I'm going to dig apple pie a lot more. It's the direct evolution of what had come before it and improvements made on it with a whole bunch of buttery crust.
Yeah.
So,
you guys were like,
or even Honey Crisp that has been genetically modified to be a better apple.
Right. So it's like
it's kind of like Pokemon. Tough. This is the Poke evolution of apples into one of these. goes regular apple, Honey Crisp, then apple pie.
My argument for Pokemon would be at a certain point, once the limitations were lessened and there was more freedom to do stuff, I think that there was a lot of choices made in Pokemon that then diluted it to take away from the equation of what made the original Pokemon games so fun. But that's for another tale. Let me say this.
Yes, please.
In terms of accidentally something that I can find value in is that I enjoyed the fact that there was not a lot of guidance in the first one. It felt like they dropped me into this world. I am here. I don't know what the hell's going on, and I got to figure it out. And that adventurous aspect, whether it was conscious or because it was just a product of where the game landed with the NES, specifications, I can't say. I doubt few people could. So that's the one thing. Everything else, apples to apples. It's 1-to-1. Link to the Past is better in every category because that's what they were trying to do. It hadn't come to a point where there was so much choice that it got diluted down, which I think a lot of the later Zelda games, they couldn't remember what it was, or they didn't realize what it was that made it fun. So they added all these features that ultimately dragged it down a little bit and diluted it a little bit. Link to the Past, I think, is the perfect combination. They struck gold on exactly what they could do with what they had, and that was all they needed to make an exceptional game.
Did you get high to play both games, or just the first one?
Just the first one.
Okay.
Second one I played, I was like, well, this is nice.
I don't need it so much for this one.
Yeah, well, the second one I played in the afternoon, and then the first one I played at night, so that was the only difference.
Well, it's funny because the way that you put it, Brent, like, it only makes sense to say that Link to the Past is a better game because they did what they intended to do. They made an amazing
did what they wanted
mold,
to do,
and then they built on that, and they did it well enough to be like, it's not like, oh, it's a shitty sequel, Zelda 2 Electric Boogaloo. It's the next iteration. It's what we meant.
I'd play the fuck out of Zelda 2 Electric Boogaloo if that was available.
Wow.
Disco Zelda is all of my shit right now. I'm all for that.
Like if
Wow.
Orville Redenbacher had known back in the day. No, if the Wright brothers had known, like, oh yeah, we could add these comfy seats in, but they didn't have that. They were like, they were just like, let's get this shit off the ground. Classic Wright brothers quote.
Right.
Let's get this shit off the ground. Then
It's also a classic Redenbacher quote too. I'm pretty sure. Oh God, let's get the shit off the ground.
I'm sure they had a lot of notes on what comfy seats and great air and like
the first
windows that are made of plastic and rounded so it's harder to break. Like I'm sure all of those plans were in place, but they were like, we just got to deal with getting this shit off the ground.
Right.
And then once, the shit was off the ground, then you could figure out the other things. I think Link to the Past is that.
I think I saw that quote at the,
the Wright Brothers Museum.
Not Memorial, sorry, the museum. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right on the front. Get the shit off the ground.
The Wright brothers, both of them just looking up like that.
Brent, I think I totally agree with you. Like I think I liked the opportunity. I'm not thinking of the right word. Oh my God, what is the word, y'all? I'm just gonna use opportunity. The opportunity of the open world to go anywhere for more adventure, blah blah blah, of the first one, but actually playing it / watching my husband play it, because I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed A Link to the Past more. Like like I mentioned earlier, like better music. It's easier visually for me to follow. I don't know. I feel like I talk about this a lot, like not just tonight, but like playing Mario Kart, even like when I first played the first few times, like my eyes couldn't adjust. I was like, where's the path? What's the I couldn't figure it out. It took me so long to figure out how people played Guitar Hero, because I was like, how do you know when to press the buttons? Because I didn't like see it. So I don't know if I just see things differently, but like it kind of takes me a while to like visually see it. And if I can't visually understand what's happening, then I can't connect to the story until I figure that out, and I could visually figure it out in A Link to the Past better than I could in The Legend of Zelda. So
Well, I think there's something to be said for, I don't like using this term because I don't want to think of things as low IQ and high IQ, but like of gamer IQ specifically. And what that really means is those who grew up playing regularly and have consistently been playing.
yeah,
There's a level of and I talk about this with my wife a lot too. There's a level of unwritten rule to gaming. The best example is World 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers for regular Nintendo. Of you starting on the left side of the screen and having all this empty space to the right immediately means, well, that means I have to move right. Oh, there's a gap. That means one of these buttons must be jump. It's building that out in level design. And as games have gotten more involved and have gotten more advanced, there's some unwritten rules that we expect people playing games to know, that if you've not done it, if you've not spent a lot of time in that world, then it's a little harder to just pick up and get those clues. Understand when you look at something like, oh, that wall must be breakable because it's got a crack in it, versus that's just a wall that looks different. Like these small things of like knowing when someone's trying to tell us something versus when it's just a regular asset. It can be very difficult, and it comes to a bigger idea that I like to push a lot of gaming accessibility, because everyone could love games and quote unquote be a gamer, but it's about giving people the opportunity to get there, as opposed to throwing the controller in someone's hand and being like, all right, figure it out. Good luck. Also, you're going to compete with 5 other people. Like, it's not the same. I mean, Heather, I feel like back in the day, when you were watching me play Super Mario Sunshine, if you remember, Too Bad popping up on the screen whenever I die. I remember you talking a bit about how the jump to 3D had always been a little bit difficult for you in gaming, at least at the time. And it is. Like, if you grew up with 2D games and then maybe not play as often and then just have to jump into a 3D game, that's a whole extra dimension to work with. That's a whole extra controllers.
Whenever, the jump, as soon as when Nintendo 64 hit and they had joysticks, I was out. I like my D-pad. But as soon as it moved to, well, one controls the person and one controls the camera, I literally can't play anymore. I tried to play Breath of the Wild because it was so pretty. Things would attack me, and I'd either be staring at the floor or staring at the sky because I couldn't figure out how to fight you and control the camera at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I feel like my brain would explode. Yes, but no, I totally agree with everything that you said. Like, I wouldn't call myself a gamer. And so coming back into it, recently I've played 3D games, right? And then going back where I never actually played a bunch of 2D games. I was like, my brain, it doesn't compute. Like my husband gave me I was playing Animal Crossing, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you'll figure. It's pretty like self-explanatory. Like you'll figure it out." And he watched me, and he was like, "Nope, you did not figure it out." I streamed it like a month or two ago, and my chat was like, "Wow, I've never seen such a stressful time of somebody playing Animal Crossing." I'm just trying to give you like a visual.
That's not
of, like,
what that game's
like
for.
Yeah, they're like, "I've never seen someone so stressed out playing Animal Crossing." So, just yes to what you were saying. Yes, I think that if you're used to it, like you're explaining the crack in the wall and like the something whatever, and I'm like, what? That's not even on my radar. So
yes,
completely agree with everything that you said.
We as gamers often take for granted the knowledge we have gained from years of playing games. That is kind of the thesis statement of all that, right?
Yeah.
And so it can be difficult, especially in like maybe going into a multiplayer setting where you want to include everybody in the group, but it's like that's not fun to be thrown into that pressure. And an otherwise game that is widely recognized as fun, and a game that one could have fun playing also becomes an awful, stressful experience because you feel pressure. And back to what I said earlier, it's like one of the things that affect how good a game is how the game is approached in the first place, how we walk up to the game, what state of mind we are in, whether we've had a bowl at night or doing it in the afternoon. All these things do come into play. And Zelda is a very interesting one because it doesn't hold your hand. Neither game, Link to the Past less so, but neither game holds your hand in this. So I want to ask this question to everybody here: is that like I think Legend of Zelda doesn't hold your hand at all. Original Nintendo Zelda doesn't hold your hand at all. You get thrown out there. Link to the Past gives you some aim. I'd argue we all familiar enough with Ocarina of Time that gives you a little more direction and a little more story there. Some Zelda games later down the line have full-on characters being like, you should go here now before you even have a chance to make a move. Like, how does direction help? When is direction in a game for you too much, and when is it not enough?
I think it
depends on the person.
And the game.
I think
If
that
it's
Kelly's going to
supposed
find a lot more fun playing a game that holds your hand and takes you through everything.
Yes.
And maybe the game developers have chosen to market to people that don't play games as often.
To me.
Yeah, which is honestly in today's world a valid industry and one that might be widely untapped.
I would say as like the
totally.
between gamer person, there can be too much. Like sometimes there are the games who are like, you should go this way. And I'm like, but there's open world. I want to see what's over there. And they're like, yeah, but you should go this way. And I'm like, all right, if it's one of those games where it's like, okay, it's not open world. If I hit the wall, I literally can't go any further. So I guess I got to go that way. Then fine. Direct me where I need to go because you're going to make me hit walls every time I'm not there. But if you've given me this whole world to explore, give me the hint, but then let me go and do whatever I want and then be like, all right, well, I looked over there. There really wasn't anything over there. I guess I'll go the way he told me to go.
Got it. So yeah, so it's almost like it's very game specific. Different genres, different experiences warrant some more than others.
Like if the original Zelda had like okay, you've been wandering around for 20 minutes and you haven't made it into a dungeon. Here's a little hint. I'd be okay with that.
Honestly, that would have been great. or a mini map that actually showed more than just a gray box in the corner, right?
I can't read that. That was why I was so excited that I could actually read the map in the other one because it was all like, oh, I can see the other one. I'm like, I don't know. It's a black box with a gray box
Wait,
in
what?
it. Like,
Where?
what am I looking at? Where am I supposed to go? Am I the gray box?
I think it's very hard for me to read a map and play the game at the same time. Like, I don't understand how people do that.
Oh, that's why I like in Link to the
It's a
Past,
skill.
when you hit the map, everything stops. And you're just looking at the map, and you're like,
okay,
cool,
Yes.
okay, great. Here's the map. But yeah, I can't do that either. Like the games now that the map will overlay while you're going, and you're like, how can you keep running and look at this map at the same time?
Yeah, exactly.
Even as a regular gamer, I kind of hate that, just because it's like, no, I don't. I'm not going to look at the map and keep moving. This is just disorienting. Like, there's just no way to make that
but
look
like-
Fall
pretty.
off a cliff.
There's good applications of that, like in first-person shooters, where you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. I got
Yeah.
just a little map up in the corner." You know, like I think that's the best.
Oh, see, but that's a game
Incarnation
where
of
you're
that.
absolutely going to die in first person. I will never play that.
Well, Heather, we'll just get you into VR. It'll be a whole new
Oh,
experience.
Oh my
no,
god.
thank you. No,
VR
thank you.
bowling.
I feel like that would be your worst nightmare.
I love to
So-
watch other people do that.
Yeah, that's absolute. That's a sport in its own right. Watching other people do VR.
Oh my god.
Before we get into our ratings, I just want to ask: is there a moment in either game from what you guys played that stands out to you? What was your big like tentpole story moment or experience? This game has a lot of things it just kind of throws at you that kind of shocks you or throws you for a loop, or maybe sometimes provides an unexpected moment. Is there one from either game that like stands out the strongest?
Not from playing it this time, because I didn't make it that far, but from having played it in the past.
Same.
Going into the dark world for the first time when you're the weird bunny head thing, that
Yeah, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
threw me for a loop. I was like, wait, is Link dreaming now? Is this happening? Why am I a bunny?
It is very trippy. Kelly, you
I
seem
didn't
so
get that
confused.
far. Yeah, no, I didn't get that far. But what? That sounds crazy.
It is. I mean, look, I would encourage you to continue past this podcast just to see what else the game throws at you, and then stop 3 dungeons into that, because after that the bosses become bullshitty, and I get so angry, so fucking angry. But that's the point. How about you guys?
No, that's what I was saying. I didn't get very far. So
Kelly liked the lightning in the
Gotcha.
beginning.
I liked the lightning and the rain.
Honestly, that's as a kid that stands out to me more than
Right?
anything else. Like that opening sequence is an amazing sequence.
Right?
It throws you to a loop because at a time where all you really know is go left, jump on Koopa, racing game, whatever. It does something with storytelling that nothing else has done yet. And it's like, oh, maybe this is an art medium in a way. Maybe this is more than just a game. And I think that rainy day moment does a little bit of that. Really shows you what can be done with environmental storytelling.
For Legend of Zelda, it's so stupid, but when I saw that heart just out of reach with over the water, that was the moment. I was like, that is brilliant. I thought of it, I got outside, I was using gamer brain or whatever the hell you want to call it, but I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's a good piece of gaming because it just sets it up and makes me want to get that. It puts
Right.
a reward in front of me.
It's
when I-
Chekhov's heart piece. Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible idea of gaming design to show the reward before anyone can do it, and then to put all these little things, and then you start looking around at the world and being like, what other kinds of things, what other kinds of secrets are there that I can't get to now, but I will later. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. No, understood. I'll throw my own out there. I don't know which dungeon it was in Link to the Past, but I think it's the third one. Anyone get to the giant worm-like caterpillar thing?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that motherfucker. This thing, the experience of having like getting it knowing it's only 6 hits, getting 5 hits in, and then having it knock me off the side of the course, so I have to run back upstairs again to face this thing while it has full health and I have 0, and the absolute ulcer that it caused me as
And
an
does that
experience.
beeping single heart stress anyone else out?
Yeah,
That's
of
the
course.
worst.
Yes.
Oh my
It's
god,
the
I had
worst.
to turn
Yes.
the volume off. I was like, be
Haunts your
quiet, I know
dreams.
I'm about
Wait.
to die.
Which
I
is
was like, Adam, turn it off. We're done. Turn it off. Like, it was not good.
Which is fine when you're outside and it's like, all right, let me cut grass. Let me
But when you're
knock a
in
couple
a
bushes
dungeon
out.
and you're like, there's no,
When you're done, I don't know when the next heart piece is going, and I have to hear this for the next half fucking hour.
and you don't have time to like pick up the few pots that there are because something's right behind you, and you're like, I know if I could just pick up that one pot, there's gonna be a
Right.
heart.
Oh, God.
And then I'll say this, the other interesting, I thought was an intricate piece of game design was Link to the Past. You have to hit those skeletons 3 times. Either with a boomerang, and the boomerang they would not they would not jump backwards. If you slice them with your sword, they'll try to jump backwards, makes it tougher. You throw the boomerang at them, it hits them, it doesn't freeze them, it actually does damage, as opposed to other enemies, which I thought was absolutely cool because it's like, what a cool detail. And then what I realized is that if you pick up a pot and throw it at the skeleton, they die in 1 hit. And so you're almost rewarded for having good aim with this limited resource in this thing. And just the little things like that compound into just an incredible masterpiece. That's attention to detail.
Encouraging experimentation, I think, is always a positive in a game, undeniably. And I think more so than the first one, I think Link to the Past absolutely does that. So, guys, let's jump into it. We're going to go through each game. Here's for those who have not listened before. This is how it works. We're going to talk about each game. We're going to give each game a ranking. It's going to number between 0 and 10 that we could only use once in perpetuity. This affects me more so than my guests right now, but it means that for any future appearance, any current appearance, whatever, that number can never be used again. You can use, you can give something a 7, give something a 7.1, a 7.01, a 7.001 ad nauseum, but you can never give a game the same number. We'll go through each game, give that our ranking, and then we'll see where it lands in the list. At that point, we have one chance to change our ranking if we are unhappy with it. If we think the game has fallen in a place that is unfair, we can change one ranking once. And once that's been done, it is locked in forever, etched on the list to represent not just myself, not just my panelists, but all of humankind. This is the list. Guys, let's jump into it, starting with the original Legend of Zelda. I'll kick it off with myself first, so I can take any hate that happens before anyone else jumps on. I gave this game a 5.85. A 5.85. And I'm doing this comparing to the list I currently have of what's been ranked so far, in that when I think about this, it's a fun game. It's enjoyable, but I don't think there's any way of me playing this without having some help, whether it is of a illicit substance or of a pen and paper. I think I like this more than, say, Duck Hunt, which would be the next one below it, based on my own personal ranking. Duck Hunt is fine.
I can't believe it's ranked that high.
So here's my thought. It's like Duck Hunt is fun for like 5 minutes. I don't know if I'd ever play more than like, unless I'm at a bar, more than maybe 5-10 minutes of Duck Hunt. I would play more 5-10 minutes of this. But then I look at what goes above that, is Crazy Taxi, which is an absolute blast, fully chaotic, and much more, no pun intended, my speed. So I gave that a 5.85. Kelly, I'm going to go to you next.
Yes. Okay. I'm also looking at the list that you have, and I just don't think I could rank it higher than Sonic the Hedgehog or Aladdin. So, I'm going to give it a solid 3.8.
A 3.8.
While still understanding its historical place in history. Historical history. There we go.
Historical history. The only kind of history we've got.
History of history. Goodness, this is a day.
A 3.8 for Legend of Zelda. All right. Brent, we're going to go to you next.
It's interesting, right? The format lends itself to a little bit of imperfection because I don't think that I think I'd have more fun playing Crazy Taxi, but I think I'd have more fun playing Legend of Zelda than Ocarina of Time. So for that reason, I'm giving it a 7.41.
Ooh.
Whoa.
But I disagree
7.41.
with Crazy Taxi being that low. And I think that Duck Hunt, if you think that Sonic the Hedgehog is worse than Duck Hunt, I'm like, who the, what? But are you
Yeah.
are you a duck?
I gotta say,
Did ducks rate did the dog rate this game?
Oh my god, I
When-
almost spit out my water.
when was the last time anyone here has played the original Sonic the Hedgehog game? Because I will say, talk about games that hold up. Sonic games are fine at best. Sonic games, I would say, what Mortal Kombat is to Street Fighter, Sonic is to Mario. Yes, it is technically cooler and hipper from a 90s perspective, but one of those games plays a lot better, and one of those games just looks like the cool kid at school. And I think that's kind of my feeling on Sonic, let alone deeper problems that I've already got into another episode. So I will just give the obligatory check that episode out, please, and move on to Heather. Where are you putting the original Legend of Zelda?
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is so hard for me because my nostalgic heart just wants to be like, it's the best thing ever.
Remember, we still have to place the other
I
one.
know.
Yes,
But then I'm
yes.
looking at your current list and I'm like, I feel like Aladdin is so far down, but I'd rather play Aladdin than the first Zelda just because I can play it better. But also, I'd rather play Zelda than Duck Hunt. So I'm like, wait, how do I? Where? I don't even
that's
know
the
what Crazy
tough
Taxi
one.
is.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine.
But because of that, I think based on that and your list, I'm gonna go with 6.2.
6.2.
Wowzers.
All right.
So does that come to about 6.5? Is that
We'll-
after the math?
We will find out shortly.
I dragged it down.
But before we find that one out, let's talk about Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and we're gonna go in reverse order. Heather, let's start with you.
Good.
Link, thanks. Link to the Past. I think I am gonna go with a. Let me see what else is on here. I think it's better than that. I wasn't a fan of that.
That's what I'm
I
doing
wasn't
too.
a fan
This
of
is
that.
this is where the struggle becomes very real. As this list gets bigger, there are plenty of things to disagree with that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
What do you like that game more than game A than you do less than game B?
Okay.
Right?
Based on that, I am gonna give it a. See, I like it as much as Super Mario World, and it's all the way up fucking there. Jesus, guys.
It is. It is.
You know what? Based on the fact that I am a fucking Zelda stan and wedded to most of the music in this particular Zelda, I'm gonna go ahead and be ballsy about it, and I'm gonna say 8.6.
Woo! From downtown. All right. 8.6.
Wow.
Shoot, way up there. All right, Brent, what you got?
All right. I didn't finish the game. I'll admit it. I'll strap on my big boy pants. You can come
You're
at
a brave
me.
man.
Come at me.
We
Come at
we
me.
salute
Twitter.
you.
Brent.
At Brent Mukai. Come at me. That's Mukai.
Right.
Here's the deal, right? I think I loved Super Mario World. I haven't played Breath of the Wild. I haven't played Elden Ring. I loved Super Mario World. I think that it's a great game to pick up, put down, pick up again a few months later. It's timeless, right? In terms of what game is going to force me to want to play, addictive in nature, and I'm going to play the shit out of it until I beat it, it's Link to the Past. And that's the type of game that I like. So in a controversial move, I'm going 9.2, and I'm giving 0.8.
Ooh.
0.8 just in case it doesn't stick the landing. But as far as what I know and the reception of Link to the Past, I know that when I finish this game, because I'm probably going to finish it, because now I'm just addicted to it. I got it open on my screen right here. I haven't closed it. I want to play the shit out of it more. So I'm probably going to, and for that reason, 9.2.
9.2. Hot damn. All right. This is shooting higher than I expected. So Kelly, what are you looking at?
Oh, y'all. Okay. I'm looking at the list. Some nostalgia for me, we've already talked about, is Ocarina of Time. Also, GoldenEye. Like, that was, like, my favorite video game for a while.
I would
Okay,
never have
all
predicted that.
Yeah, me too.
I gotta say that.
Honestly, yeah, actually.
If you had put a gun to my head and said, guess Kelly Baskin's
wouldn't be
favorite
high.
video game.
If you would put a
As a
golden
child.
gun or slappers only to his
Yes.
I
head.
know that
If you would-
your whatchamacallit game on the was so stressful, the one that's supposed to be really easy for everyone.
Animal Crossing. That one? Yeah.
Right.
Stressful,
Yes,
but
if-
GoldenEye.
If
Duh.
you
Guys,
would
I
put a-
I can't do Animal Crossing. This is too tough. Give me a fucking gun.
Yeah. If you'd put a silenced
rifle
pistol
going.
Okay. Oh,
to
that's
my
right.
overly sized head because you put the cheat code in, I would have never guessed it.
Oh, it's it's just one of the games that I had.
I get it,
okay?
I get
So, all right. Okay.
Fuck stocks. Give me landmines.
Okay. I think that I'm just gonna give it a solid 7.
A solid 7.
7.
Okay.
7.
Zelda fans weep.
Well, you gave
So-
it a 9.8
I
or
know,
whatever.
too.
So
So you feel you feel like it goes below Ocarina of Time, below GoldenEye?
I think
like-
it does.
Okay.
For me personally, yes, I do. Just because I really didn't enjoy it as much as the other 2 games that I've played. So,
No.
don't hate me.
Understandable.
I think that's totally valid. I think that's totally valid because I have it down for myself as a 7.2. In the same kind of vein. When I look at this list, I think about how much did I enjoy this game, and yes, it gave me heart palpitations. Yes, I had to dye my hair red because of how much gray hair it was giving me. But I definitely and I was a pretty big when we did Ocarina of Time, I was kind of anti Ocarina of Time. I came in with a chip on my shoulder for that episode. But I will say, I do think I like that more than this. I think the jump to 3D, and the heavier story, the heavier emphasis on story, and the
Brent is
story
offended.
beats of that game beat this out. Though this is still a pretty great game, and if you think on the grand scheme of every game ever made, and we're talking 0 to 10, 7.2, that's a C.
It's still
in the scheme
high,
of things,
yeah.
right? And right now, in such a small list, that's not a bad place to be. So, with all that said, guys, give me 1 second. I'm going to insert these in, and we're going to see where
gotta
they
math.
fall on the list. We are now at the point where we have 23 games. I'm not going to read all of them. What I am going to do is talk about where the individuals are. Let's start from the bottom, work our way up. First, the original Legend of Zelda lands at the number 16 spot at 5.815, above Duck Hunt, above Hyperstone Heist, above both Aladdin's and Sonic, and below the Crazy Taxis. It lands where I wanted it to land. I'm happy with that. But it doesn't sound like everyone else is, so we'll see where this goes. However, the other Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, lands, I'm shocked that the math worked out this way, at a solid 8. 8 even in the number 4 spot, meaning we're going to do our top 10 real quick from the bottom to the top. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, TMNT Shredder's Revenge, GoldenEye 007, WarioWare Microgames Inc., TMNT Turtles in Time at number 5, Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past at number 4, Elden Ring number 3, Super Mario World number 2, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in the number 1 spot. Now, with the games landing where they are, you guys have one chance to change one score of yours. You can make it higher to bring a game up. You can make it lower to bring a game down. But you only get to do it to one. So if you don't like where both are, tough noogies, you got to deal with at least one of them. How do you guys feel of where these two games are on the list?
I'm going to tell you right now, I love the way that it landed. I think that it's completely fair. I think Link to the Past is better than the other game, but than Super Mario World personally. But even if I disagreed with it, I'd stick with my answer because I'm all about making choices, baby.
All right.
I make it strong.
All right. I mean, if you think it's a better game, you can always push it up.
I only have 0.8 to work with. There's
That's true.
literally
You're not giving
zero
a lot.
reason, and I don't think it's a 10. I'm sticking with my answer. I got to give it what I give it. How it lands, that's not up to me.
Truly
That's up to
valid.
the group.
Truly valid. Fair enough. Heather
I think
Kelly.
I agree. The Legend of Zelda is higher than a couple games than I would think that I would like to play, but in the grand scheme of things, like, it probably ended up where it needed to be, especially because of its historical significance. And the Link to the Past, again, it's above some games that I like more, but y'all really loved this game more than I did, apparently. So, I think both of these games fell where they needed to.
We're sounding real awful nice about this. I don't know.
We're pretty nice people.
I mean,
If you want me to be not nice, can I change the score of Duck Hunt to a 1 indefinitely? Is that off the table?
Yeah, can we change someone else's score to have to be the ones we voted on?
Well, Heather, how do you feel about the ones where they land for you here?
You know what? I kind of feel the same way everyone else does. I feel like, based on the nostalgia love of it and what it created, Zelda definitely doesn't deserve to be any lower than it is. But based on what's above it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where those would hit. The only one I disagree with is where Super Mario World falls, but that has nothing to do with me. Because I think that A Link to the Past really is a stepping stone for games like Elden Ring, and then the Breath of the Wild. The only one that confuses me is Mario. So
Well, what if it did have something to do with you? What
Can
if
I
you
move
could
Mario?
change into the score? Guys, I introduced this in the last episode. As first-time guests on this podcast, I'm willing to allow you to add a score to any game on this list. Though you only get this freebie once. Means if you come back to the podcast, you can save it for that later episode, or you can use it now.
So like
I'll
I
use
should
it now. I'm giving Duck Hunt a straight 1.9 because I don't think it's worse than E.T., but damn it, that game blows chunks.
You're going 1.9 on Duck Hunt.
I can't believe it got that high. Who was the Duck Hunt enthusiast?
I mean, I liked Duck Hunt
And were they a dunk?
I liked
Sorry.
it.
Oh my
How
God.
long did you play it for?
as a child. A
5
lot.
minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
All right,
The gun was always off a little bit. It just always felt like straight bullshit to me.
Brent,
I could never die in that game, Brent. There was nothing
Yeah, but you're
trying to kill
killing
me.
ducks. Killing all
Brent,
these
I'm
precious
locking in
ducks.
1.9 for you
Yeah.
on Duck Hunt.
Okay, hang on.
Where does that drop? Duck
I mean, if I
Hunt
could
now.
give a negative number, but that seems almost fully unreasonable.
Honestly, that does drop it down 2 spots. It is now, it's above Sonic the Hedgehog, but it is below Sega Genesis Aladdin and below the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up for the Sega Genesis. It dropped it down. That's a fair amount.
Yeah, if I had my way, it would be just above ET. But I'm gonna say this: I'm not about that world. I'm honoring the rules of the game here. So,
Heather, Kelly, anything on this list that you think is unjustifiable, does not represent humanity in the way that you see it needs to.
I think I'm going to save my vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to save it.
Never know what else might show up.
There's a lot that could show up, Noah, so I'm keeping it in my back pocket.
Everything could show up. Nothing is off limits.
That's what I'm saying. So, I feel like I want a little bit more to work with before I move something.
I can respect that. Heather, you have been finger in mouth thinking for a couple minutes now.
I just don't understand.
You came in being like, "Oh, can I move?" You literally you said, "I don't understand this."
I don't
And
understand
now
how Super Mario World is up with Elden Ring and Zelda. Like,
No,
it's a great
You're not a
game.
platformer fan, huh?
No, I am. It's great. It's a great Mario game, but when you're putting a Mario game up under like story-driven games,
Yeah,
then I'm
you
like,
know
but
what?
it's a
I can rock
side-scroll
with that.
game.
I can rock with that.
So Heather, what do you want to give it?
Heather, talk yo shit, girl.
Where is it with? I don't math well, so I don't know what I give. What'll drop it? I don't want to drop it too far because it is a good
You
game.
also,
but
I mean, you also don't know what the other scores given to it were that got it to that
That's
point.
true.
Right.
So
okay. So if I were coming into it looking at Super Mario World, I would have given Super Mario World a
bum bum.
I know. A 7.49.
Okay, that's way fairer than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, I don't think
gotta
it's a bad
say.
game. I like Super Mario World. I'm just not sure how it
Heather
competes
coming in with
with.
a 0.0.
I don't hate
So
it the way
granted-
you hate Duck Hunt.
And I don't even hate Duck Hunt. I'm just like, I could. That's like 8 minutes of fun.
So you think it should be at 7.49, or you want to give it a 7.49?
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Right, because I'm giving it a score now, trying to drop it. Right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
this is a
supposed to be doing?
this is a
Damn it.
gamble. This is a
Okay.
gamble.
No, you should just give it what you
math,
think it
Noah.
is. I don't know.
I mean,
That's my sense
where
of
do you
honor.
think it belongs on the list? Where do you think it?
I mean,
where do you
on
think
the
it deserves
list,
to
On the
be?
list, I think it should be either. Yeah, I think it should be like right below Wario, right above Wario. Yeah, honestly, on the list, I would say between Turtles and Wario. But I
How do you want to get? How do you want to get
I
it there?
know, that's math. See, this is why you need math, Brent. All of my teachers are so mad right now.
No, but if you give it a 7.49, then it'll probably drop it to that.
Who knows? It could. Mario could have gotten 8.575s across the board.
Okay,
so even
so-
the slightest change could drop it, or it could be 2 9s, a 2, and a
I
6.
feel like it's life or death right now. I'm so stressed out about this. Okay, I don't want to be too
Bum, bum.
mean because I really do like the Mario game. I just don't understand why it's up there. So I'm gonna give it a 6.
6. You're gonna use your 6.
Yeah.
Here we go. That drops it to popping back over. It drops it
3.
below Elden Ring, keeps it above Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So not enough, but what was at one point the long-standing best game of all time has begun to continue its fall from grace. That's still something. At this point, with so many scores, dropping at one point is still an impressive feat in its own right. Honestly, you're going to give it a 7.4 something, it was going to do fuck all probably. So this gives you something there. With that said, Kelly, you're holding on to yours. You're not using it.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna hold on to it. I feel like I there are some games on here that I wanna see, and I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket, Noah.
That is truly zen of you. I respect that. That is great. But on that note, guys, the list is locked in, etched in stone, like Moses with the tablets to represent and lead the people to a better tomorrow, a better future. But a better future means so many more games than we have on this list. There's so many more to go through, and dag nabbit, we will go through all of them. But until then, I want to thank my wonderful guests here for being a part of this lively and quite insightful conversation. Honestly, guys, this was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. Before we send everyone their merry way, plug yourselves. What are you working on? Where can people find you? Hustle.
I'm on all socials at Kelly Baskin VO. Yeah, and working on some fun stuff that I can't wait to talk about.
I am on everything at Brent Mukai, BrentMukai. And if you want to send me Duck Hunt memes, I'm telling you right now, they're gonna piss me off. So
Flood 'em.
Do it,
you
do
go
it,
flood
ahead.
'em.
do it.
You go right ahead.
That's Mukai.
That's Mukai. Brent Mukai.
I sadly, one of mine was taken, so mine aren't the same all the way around. On Twitter, I am Hezzy, HEZZY _star, STARRVO. On Instagram, I'm Hezzy _star _VO.
Ooh, that's always rough.
I know.
But easy enough to find. We'll at least have a level of imageries and put this all stuff up in the descriptions and things, guys.
I also just want to say,
Yes.
before anyone comments or asks, no, there's no relation to Carol Baskin, okay? And if you remember from the series, she married into that name anyway. So I just know if I don't say it, people fucking comment. So.
And I did want
No
to mention,
relation.
I forgot on Instagram, I am at Hezzy _star VO.
That was interesting. That was insightful in a lot of ways. It was a lot of fun to get into it, but very interesting. I will say, I imagine there's going to be some people unhappy with where some of these games fell, but I don't think either of these were bad or even unfair scores. They may feel unfair at the list when there's only so many games, but I think that goes for quality of games we've gone over so far on this podcast. Don't let Zelda or for NES being down on the list get you down if it's still hanging above at a 5.8 ish. Like that's not a bad score. But I know I'm going to upset some of the internet. It's bound to happen. It's totally fine. You're allowed to have your opinions as long as you recognize their opinions and not facts, because the only facts are the facts of the list, the defining list, the list of a generation that dictates not just what I think, not just what you think, but all of humankind thinks. It was a heavy burden. We bore it. So that wraps up the episode, but before we go into all our obligatory ending pieces, we do, of course, have the question of the month. Our way of sort of rounding out and hearing from you guys how you feel about the episode. Now, in the last episode, we had asked the world if the Ninja Turtle games did not have the Ninja Turtles IP, would they still be as good? Unfortunately, this podcast still being new, we're still trying to get our footing. Not a large enough audience interested in answering that question, so I have nothing to report on, nothing to react to. That's fine. It just means people missed out, but you don't have to miss out on this question of the month. Where is the thin line between obtuse being good and obtuse being bad? Where does that fall? Where do we cross into this is a problem when we are withholding information or hiding things? Right? I felt like original NES Zelda straddles that line a little bit. But like we look at something like Elden Ring, that is a very obtuse game, points you in the right direction for discovery. But there are other games out there that like they just don't, they hold your hand so little, and it's to the point where you just don't know what to do or where to go, and it detracts from the enjoyment. So what are those defining factors that change whether that level of, I'm going to keep using obtuse, but like defining yourself, that level of withholding information is a good thing as a gameplay feature or a bad thing as a gameplay mistake? It's something to wrap your head around. Think about that. Take some time to think about that. And when you have your answer, leave it in a comment on the YouTube channel, if you can. Or if you'd rather, and what would help us out even more, is leave it as part of your review on your favorite podcasting app. So if you are leaving us a 5-star review, and I hope you like it enough to leave us a 5-star review, then put that answer as part of your review there. That not only gives us something to look at, but it then, again, helps the algorithm, gets us into people's faces, and allows us to spread the joy, the gospel, if you will, of this list. You can always like this video. You can always thumbs up it. You can hit the follow button on YouTube. You can also go ahead and just give us a follow on your favorite podcasting app. Let's up that average. I've seen the numbers. Most people who listen aren't actually following the podcast. So just by doing that will make a huge difference in changing that percentage that I see every time I look at our analytics. Until then, you can go ahead and find me, if not on this podcast, everywhere else in the world at Boss Monster Kaiju. That is TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, and I am Boss Monsta. That's a STA Kaiju on Twitter and Hive if you want to follow there on both the platform Falling Apart and its alternative, which doesn't seem to work that well. I'm still there. We also go ahead, check us out at the kaijulounge.com, where we actually have the list of all the games and where they currently rank. And we will be updating that website about a week after this video airs, so you'll be able to see up-to-date rankings every month as we change them. Next month, first Monday of the month, next month, if you've been a long-time listener to the podcast, you are in luck. The guys are back. My regulars, my chums, my college pals, Louis Thomas, Michael Petrocelli, and Patrick Malloy are coming back with an interesting theme. I gave them a prompt. And that prompt was, did I make this up? And you're going to go ahead and check out the episode to see what games they come up with. What does that prompt mean? What games are they giving us? Who knows? I mean, I do. I know everything. But you're going to want to check this out. It's something different. We're trying new things. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. It's going to be a good time. I want to give one more thank you and shout out to Heather Gonzalez, Kelly Baskin, and Brent Mukai for being on the podcast. It was a blast. I'm looking forward to having the guys back, the regular crew, back on the podcast for all the shenanigans that will include. And until next time, until you listen to my sultry voice again, all I can say is stay cool, stay hip, stay heavy. The Best Game of All Time is an independent production, hosted, produced, and edited by Noah Waterman. Theme music by Peter Rowland. If you want to learn more, go visit www.thekaijulounge.com.